Welcome to TheRoadSMITHS. If you're new to our channel, I'm Pam.
And I'm Ken.
And Meka's around here napping somewhere. But if you've been with us for the past 4 years, or even if you're a more recent subscriber, first we want to say thank you so much for your support. A couple of weeks ago, we published a video called Don't Sweat It. And in that video, we discussed traveling to the national parks and not having camping reservations within those parks. We showed you some of the places we stayed outside of the parks and other options in those areas to consider as well. And in that video, we discussed national parks in the eastern part of the country and the mountain states.
Yeah, so in this video, which is part 2, we're going to cover Mount Rainier, Crater Lake, Joshua Tree, and Death Valley, all in the western United States. And again, we're going to show you where we stayed, because we did have camping reservations inside the park, and then some other options as well. And we'll actually show you what some of the surrounding area offers. We've created a playlist below, and we'll put it in the description, which actually shows the videos we did from those areas, and it'll give you some other ideas. So let's get back into it right after we roll the intro.
RV life requires pivoting from time to time, and in 2023 we had to pivot. We were in Montana and we had planned to go and explore the western part of Canada, but unfortunately that year the wildfires were extremely bad, so it did keep us from going there, and we decided instead to explore the Oregon coast.
We always wanted to go there, just a beautiful place.
The only problem was, because we had no reservations, surprise, surprise, we had to wait until after Labor Day before we could go that way.
Yeah, so what we decided to do is we staged ourselves in a town called Kelso, Washington, which is kind of in between, let's call it Portland and Tacoma, Washington, at the Brook Hollow RV Resort. And from there, it was really easy to get to Mount Rainier, which is awesome, beautiful, by the way. But it's also easy to get to places like Mount Hood, Multnomah Falls, and some other areas, like the cute little town of Astoria. It's where they filmed the
Goonies.
The Goonies, yeah, which I never saw in the 80s, by the way, but I guess I do need to watch it. And it's also the site of the famous Coast Guard training station on the Columbia Bar. There is a closer campground to the town of Astoria called River's Edge, and it's in a town called Klatskanee. And leave a comment below if I'm mispronouncing it, which I'm sure I probably am. And our good friends Jerry and Teresa from Happy Place Diaries did a video of that campground, and we'll put a link below to that. If you're fortunate to get a site in Mount Rainier, there's actually 3 campgrounds and a total count of sites of about 437 or so. So if you do your proper planning, you can probably score one of those great sites, which we didn't.
Crater Lake National Park is so remote, and it's so remote that we actually have a suggestion other than the camping information we're going to offer. Is if you're on the fence about whether or not to get Starlink, we definitely suggest that you get Starlink before you go there.
Yeah, it's really remote. There's no cell phone coverage. I mean, like 0 cell phone coverage, and there is no TV coverage. Now, the campground we stayed at, which is the Diamond Lake RV Park, actually had DVDs, and surprisingly enough, we actually carry a DVD player in this alliance when we were there. So I'm not sure we actually rented one, but yeah, again, very, very remote. We stayed at Diamond Lake RV Park, like I said, and there's a Diamond Lake campground, so don't confuse it. That's part of the National Forest Service. And there's a few rustic campgrounds around. In fact, we actually walked through the National Forest campground, and I think we saw maybe 1 or 2, RVs in there. Very,
that
very
would be dry
rustic.
camp.
Yeah, and it was dry camping. So where we stayed in our RV park, it was very nice, full hookup, lots of woods. And so with Starlink, that may be a little bit of an issue. You'll find a clearing there. But what I found fascinating is you can walk down to this little pizza place that was right there on the lake's edge. And I'm from New York and I'm kind of a pizza snob. People told us it was a good place. We just didn't try it. Maybe we actually should have. So yeah, a good campground is probably about a 15 or 20 mile drive into Crater Lake from there.
Crater Lake is so gorgeous, and the funny thing was when we were there, which would have been around September.
It's September, yeah, something like that.
We actually experienced 3 seasons in one day. It snowed on us, it rained on us, and then the sun was out, and it was beautiful. So you never know what to expect.
And when the sun came out over the lake, when you're perched up high like that, it's
gorgeous.
It's really spectacular.
The water there at Crater Lake is some of the cleanest water in a lake, I think, in the United States. But it's actually a collapsed volcano, yeah. And there are no rivers or streams that flow in or out of it, and therefore all of the water inside of that lake is dependent upon rainfall and snow melt. And so I don't know, maybe you can drink it, it's so clean.
Yeah, well, and you are perched very high up there, and we did see some Instagrammers trying to see if they could fall off the edge, and that was kind of interesting as well.
And is it also the deepest lake?
It's the deepest lake in the United States. It's just under 2,000 feet, yes. So anyway, this is not about Crater Lake per se, and there are some other National Forest campgrounds around there, but if you want full hookups and you want DVDs, then really there's only one place to go. We hope you're enjoying the video so far, but before we get to the remainder of the video, we wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, RV Snap Pads. You know, there's certain things that we as RVers believe are must-haves in terms of accessories, and in our honest opinion, RV Snap Pads are one of those things. We do a lot to protect our RV, whether it's using surge protectors, propane protectors, you know, washing and waxing, resealing the roofs, you know, repacking the bearings, all those things. Something that's often overlooked are the landing pads for your stabilizer or your leveling jacks. And, you know, they're under a lot of pressure. They're taking a lot of weight on some very hard surfaces. So there's some options you can do, and we've seen this around campgrounds and something we actually did the first year as well. So we built some wooden blocks to go under the leveling jacks of our Alliance fifth wheel. We took some 10x2s, cut those and to size, and we carried those around. But the issue with them is they're heavy, they're clumsy, they can get dirty, and we got to have storage for that. The other thing that we've seen are the, you know, I'll call them the Lego blocks, the Camco blocks. We've seen those a lot as well, made out of plastic, and we've seen those big red buckets that people use to extend their jacks. The challenge with any one of those is, one, they can crack, the plastic can crack, and they do cost money, and so you have to replace those. And two is you have to walk around your campsite, and you have to get those centered on the landing pad of the stabilizer jacks or the leveling jacks. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to bend over a whole lot, and certainly when I'm ready to tear down, I don't want to be, you know, running around collecting those things. And we've seen people that have forgotten those as they've left the campground. Snap pads are a simple thing that's ingenious. They're made out of recycled rubber. They literally snap into place on your pad, and they're semi-permanent. You're not going to lose them. Now, you can take those off if you need to, but 4 years of traveling with our RVs, and we've had them on our Alliance, we've had them on the Lance that we had in 2024, and we put them on the Airstream that we purchased in 2025. We've not lost one of those. So we talk about value for the dollar. My belief is that RV Snap Pads are one of, if not the best value for your dollar in all the RV accessories. We wouldn't have an RV without them. It's very simple to order, and it's very simple to install. To order, what you want to do is measure your landing pads, and they even have a pull down on their website where you can plug in the type of RV that you have, and it'll give you some suggestions. But I still recommend that you measure those and get them submitted that way. Once you place the order, and we have a discount code that we'll list here below, then when you receive those, all you're going to do to install them is put a little ring of Dawn around the inner edge of the snap pad, get them centered under the pads, and then place downward pressure from your RV into the pads until they literally snap into place. They call them semi-permanent, and yes, you can get them off if you really need to, but in 4 years of traveling, we've never lost any of those on any rigs that we've had. So again, this is one of those things where I believe it's a no-brainer, and I think based on what we've seen around the campgrounds, a lot of people do have these as well. But if you don't, I would suggest you take a look into those. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Let's talk about Joshua Tree. And every time I hear that term, since I'm a drummer, I think about the U2 album with the same name. In fact, they actually got inspiration from that park to name that album. So it's really interesting, and if you come in the southern entrance, which we did the first day, it's just like very unimpressive. It's like, unless you like vast nothingness. Which
and you kind of wonder, we traveled for quite a while.
Before we saw a tree.
Because we were like, why do they call it Joshua Tree? We don't even see Joshua Tree.
Yeah, so the northern end of the park is really where most of the interesting things are. So a lot of the trees, a lot of the rock outcroppings, and that's where a lot of the campgrounds are. And I think there's a total of 6 national park campgrounds there. So we didn't, of course, stay in the park itself. We did stay at 1,000 Trails in Palm Springs. Since we got the free membership for a year from purchasing the Airstream, we decided to give it a shot. It was, it was close enough to a couple things. In fact, actually from that particular campground, it's, I think, about 30 miles to the southern entrance and 50 miles to the more northern entrance, which is near the town of Joshua Tree and 29 Palms. If you only had one day in the park, I would suggest that you just, go to the northern entrance and do that, because, like I said, that's where most of the interesting things are. There are other campgrounds around, and we saw a lot of boondocking. Tons
of boondocking around, but we weren't set up for boondocking at that point.
Well, we hadn't tested it yet, but at the same time. So again, 1,000 Trails, not bad, I would say. And we did a video on this called 1,000 Fails. And the park could be really, really good, if it wasn't for 2 issues. And that was a lot of pedestals were out of power. Luckily, we got one with power. Otherwise, we would have just boondocked. And there was a ton of sand in all the sites, and we arrived on a really windy day. We'll put a link to that video there as well. But other than that, it would really be a nice campground, and there's some interesting things to do around there as well. Yeah,
the great thing about the 1,000 Trails right there is it's very convenient to Palm Springs, and a lot, as you can imagine, happens in Palm Springs. Just a really good location.
Yep.
Death Valley National Park is such an iconic park, and not like anything we've ever actually seen or experienced before. We went during the month of March, and thankfully the temperatures were actually quite comfortable when we were there.
It's pretty hot in the sun now when the sun came out.
There is only one campground within that national park, and it's called Furnace Creek, which does not sound very hospitable to me.
Especially in the summer.
I want to say. But they have 129 sites, and there are also other National Park Service campgrounds outside of Death Valley.
Yeah, we actually stayed at another 1,000 Trails, and this is the one in Las Vegas. And this is a renowned bad campground, but it really had 2 redeeming qualities for us. And that was, we were there to see Pam's dad, who lives in Vegas, and it was free. So, who can argue with that?
You can't pass that up.
We just would not recommend it. If you're there to see Death Valley, we would not recommend that campground, because it was really far away. It was about 2 hours or so from Death Valley. But as we came back from Death Valley, we passed through a town called Pahrump. I'm probably mispronouncing it as well.
I love the name of that. I love that.
And but as we drove through, we came across a campground. I think it's called Nevada Treasures, and it looked really, really nice. In fact, after doing some research, it turns out there's like 4 campgrounds in the town of Pahrump, and they all get really good reviews. So it's like 44 miles to the entrance of Death Valley. So if you plan on going there and can't get inside of inside the park in their campground, and maybe some of the other National Park Service campgrounds, I would definitely look at Pahrump, because again, they looked really, really nice.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Pahrump is a really tiny little town, but they have 4 campgrounds.
Yeah.
Clearly, they expect people. They expect people that are coming from the eastern side to likely stay there. We hope this video has been helpful to you. And in part 1 of the series, we talked about the Northeast region and the Intermountain region. And you can find the link for that down below.
Yeah, if you've never been to any one of our national parks, there's 63 of them in the United States. I mean, they are just absolutely national treasures. And if you've not been there, you're missing out. And if you're not subscribed to our channel, quite frankly, you're missing out as well. But you can fix that really easily. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
It's free.
Yeah, it is free. And you'll find videos from our 4 years of travel, covering a lot of national parks, covering state parks, just covering some really interesting places in the United States. We have a saying on this channel, and we say, if you can imagine it, you can explore it. And that applies to you whether you're an RV veteran or just a beginner as well. So we want to thank you again for watching, and we hope to see you guys on the road.
Thanks, guys.